Good morning, Pa, and others if you stumbled on this. Welcome back, and God be with you. All right. Let's see what else we can do to get more information about Enoch. Wow, he's got a lot to say with Enoch. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, this might be a 3-part chapter, not just a 2-part chapter. All right, reassuring the fledgling prophet. Joseph continues. To reassure Enoch, the Lord gives justification for the mission, explaining, "This people have denied me." That's Moses 6:28. Notice how different this is from the Lord's words about Jeremiah's people, who have not known him. That's from Genesis 18:15. Enoch's cousins knew God quite well. They just consciously rejected everything about him. Again, at first glance, this doesn't seem too strange. This comes off as generic Christian language, except that this isn't the post-Christian period, and the idea of denying someone doesn't occur frequently in the Old Testament. Sarah denies laughing about bearing Isaac in her old age. See Genesis, that was Jeremiah 4:22. This is Genesis 18:15. And Job decides not to deny the God that is above. There are a few occurrences in Proverbs and elsewhere, but this phrase isn't common. Never does Lucifer, Lot, Sodom, Pharaoh, Goliath, David, Solomon, Jezebel, or King Manasseh ever deny the Lord. Joseph doubles down, describing how Enoch repeats this language to the people against them, saying, "Why counsel ye yourselves and deny the God of heaven?" That's Moses 6:43. This rare and intentional shot gets alley-ooped by the apocrypha. The Ethiopian Enoch also records the Lord's frustration that men have denied the Lord of spirits and denied the name of the Lord of spirits. They didn't only deny the Father, but they denied the Lord of spirits and his anointed. Those all come from 1 Enoch and such. God says the same thing to the same Enoch in the Old Slavonic Enoch. They have begun to bow down to vain gods and deny my unity, and have laden the whole earth with untruths, offenses, abominable lecheries. Note the parallels between Joseph's version and the Old Slavonic, discovered 50 years after Joseph's murder. Joseph's Enoch in 1830. Enoch, my son, prophesy unto this people. The Old Slavonic, go down to earth and tell your sons all that I have told you. Joseph, and for many generations, even since the day that I created them, they have gone astray. Slavonic, for I created all forces. Joseph, and have denied me. Slavonic, they have rejected my commandments and my yoke. Worthless seed has come up, not fearing God, and they would not bow down to me, I suppose, but have begun to bow down to vain gods and deny my unity. Joseph, and have sought their own counsels in dark and their own abominations. They have devised murder and have not kept the commandments which I gave unto their father Adam. Wherefore they have forsworn themselves, and by their oaths they have brought upon themselves death. Slavonic, and have laden the whole earth with untruths, offenses, abominable lecheries, namely one with another, and all manner of unclean wickedness, which are disgusting to relate. Enoch is called to prophesy because God's creations are denying him and turning to abominable lecheries. Four more boxes get checked. It's already starting to feel like Dumbledore. 4 more points to Smithendore! If that wasn't enough, the Hebrew Book of Enoch replays the scene almost perfectly too. Enoch is called, and the angels are weirded out by this one born of woman. 53, that's 3 Enoch 6:2, who is suddenly God's favorite. These were the same guys who called Enoch a lad. God responded with the reason: all children of men have denied me. Joseph packs in Enoch's call, his nickname lad, and God's lament that men have denied him in exactly the right place. Thus Enoch 1, 2nd Enoch, and 3rd Enoch all correspond to Joseph's Enoch, or Enoch 0. In the me and my wife just scribbled out this 3,000-year-old scripture one day version of Enoch, Joseph claims that God reassures Enoch by saying, "Go forth and do as I have commanded thee, and no man shall pierce thee." The Mandean tradition of Enoch repeats this almost exactly. The first Enoch is unsure and prostrate. First, Enoch is unsure and prostrates himself. The idea of preaching to the blood-soaked sons of Seth freezes Enoch's heart. Notice that the angels call Enoch when reassuring him. Little Enoch, do not fear anything. You have feared the dangers of this world. I have come to you to deliver you from them. Do not fear the wicked. Do not fear the floods that they rise on your head, for their efforts will be in vain. It will not be given to them to do you any harm. It goes on to warn that the wicked have plotted against Enoch, but they've done so in vain. According to the Mandean account, their reassurances work on little Enoch, who rose with joy and surrounded by splendor and light, adorned with all the virtues he shone. This enrages the fallen men who formed criminal plans to try to murder and fire against them, but neither fire nor murder had any success. Besides, says the Josephite account, the preaching isn't coming from Enoch, but from the Lord. Open thy mouth, and it shall be filled, and I will give thee utterance. Another apocryphal account, called the Le Livre des Secrets de Enoch, identifies the Lord as the source of Enoch's preaching to echo Joseph. I have been sent by the mouth of the Lord to tell you what will be. And now, my children, it is not out of my own mouth that I speak to you today, but by the mouth of the Lord who has sent me to you. For you hear the words of my mouth, and I have heard the words of the Lord. According to Joseph, the Lord ends with a colossal investiture of power. Behold, my spirit is upon you, wherefore all thy words will I justify. And the mountains shall flee before you, and the rivers shall turn from their course, and thou shalt abide in me, and I in you. Therefore walk with me. For such a minor character? Really? Joseph is making Enoch sound more powerful and exalted than Moses or Elijah or anyone. Decades later, this is exactly what the ancient documents would confirm. One of the first problems the angel of life has for little Enoch to solve is that sweet water could not be found among all the creations. Only one river was sweet, while everything else was bitter. The angel commands little Enoch to rise up toward the course of the water, divert its course, and may this living and subtle water falling into the deep water soften its bitterness by mixing with it. Precisely as Josephite record predicted, at this command, with the help of an angel, Enoch in fact diverted the course of the subtle water. Ooh, interesting. Precisely as the Josephite record predicted at this command. And with the help of an angel, Enoch in fact diverted the course of the subtle water. Once again, Joseph Smith Jr. puts his chips on something completely absent from all of their scripture. Nowhere in the Bible are rivers being diverted. Elijah didn't do that. Even Jesus didn't do that. But Joseph gambles it all on Enoch, diverting rivers. And later discoveries prove him right. According to the Hebrew, Enoch's presence even cows the angels themselves. All the hosts of every heaven, who are greater than all the ministering angels who minister before the throne of glory, shook, feared, and trembled before me when they beheld me. 3rd Enoch 14:1. For Joseph's, that's Moses 7:13. That was the diverting rivers, if you wanted to know. Joseph does this in a couple of lines. 1, Enoch is nervous. So, 2, the Lord reassures him by saying, 3, I am their creator, and people have denied him, and no one will hurt Enoch. And the Lord will give Enoch what to say, and mikasa sukasa, if you want to fry someone, just say so and I'll zap him. Enoch's vision of premortality. Joseph and Emma's spontaneous scripture tells us that Enoch is given a vision, which comes right on the heels of his call. Emma wrote, And Enoch beheld the spirits that God had created, and he beheld also things which were not visible to the natural eye. Enoch's new second sight is so remarkable that it earns him another nickname. From thenceforth came the saying abroad in the land, A seer hath the Lord raised up unto his people. Ooh. So that's Moses 6:36, by the way. Now, the lad is a seer, too. We don't know if this epithet was used in admiration or derision. This scene plays out in the Old Slavonic with some similar language. The Lord spoke to me, Enoch, beloved, all that you see, all things that are standing. Finished I tell... That's weird words. The Lord spoke unto me, Enoch, beloved, all that you see, all things that are standing, finished I tell you, even before the very beginning. All I created from non-being, and visible things from invisible. That's 2 Enoch 24:2. Interesting. That's a crazy way of putting it. Enoch then sees a vision of God creating the heavenly troops in the image and essence of fire. God then declares, I created man from invisible and from visible nature. Of both are his death and life and image. Contrary to the pessimism in the Genesis account, God then blessed all his creatures, visible and invisible. That's in 2 Enoch. The Mandean Enoch also contains a vision of creation, but not starting with heavens, earth, light, and so on, like Joseph and the Old Slavonic account. The Mandean also starts with the creation of outras, and before the existence of geni. When spirits and angels are called into existence, little Enoch is shown the mystery of the living fire, so that Enoch might know the spirit and angel of this world. Enoch is told that this living fire is the souls of men. Not to be left out, the Hebrew Enoch records this vision too. Come, and I will show thee where are the spirits of the righteous that have been created and have returned, and the spirits of the righteous that have not yet been created. 3 Enoch 43:1. Okay, so this is getting really kind of cool. The mysteries of the living fire. The spirit, okay. Sorry, the reason this is getting really cool... Sorry, my eyes itch. The reason this is really cool is because there's a... If you've ever read Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card, after Ender's Game itself, has Speaker for the Dead, and he describes... I wonder if he read stuff about this as well, or he just kind of came up with it. Because Orson Scott Card is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. So he may have gotten it just from the idea of having a premortal existence, but in his books, he writes science fiction, and starting in Speaker for the Dead, and then later on, Xenocide, Children of the Mind, and The Last Shadow, he leans heavily into the idea of a place outside of our normal space, but more importantly, that the kind of spirits of the creatures that are brought in are kind of called in from this space beyond. And so I think it's kind of funny that it seems very parallel to these kind of scriptures, where I don't know if he got it from these scriptures or just the idea of premortal existence altogether, but the verbiage that made me pause at first was the idea of a spirit. And I know we easily have the idea of God the Father and the Son Jesus Christ. We've got pictures of them both standing before Joseph Smith during his first vision. But when it comes to the Holy Ghost, we understand very importantly its role and what it's for. We don't understand it as a member of the Godhead. We understand it's a spiritual being. But what makes me wonder if it taps into or is a part of, or who knows what else, how to describe it, of the living fire or the spirit or that they're describing here. So, I don't know. That's one of those things that I'm like, that'd be interesting if, and I'll have to leave it at that. Another 3 Enoch texts align perfectly with Joseph. Enoch received a vision of the creation of spirits. Let us pause to ask ourselves, why here? Why now? Why does the Lord give Enoch this vision? Is it just a generic vision that he whips out whenever he needs a new prophet? Elisha saw the angelic army because he was about to be thrown into battle. Jeremiah saw the branches of a tree because the branch of Israel's tree was about to be broken off. Lehi saw the destruction of Jerusalem when Jerusalem was about to be destroyed. What about Enoch's ministry requires him to see the spirits of the unembodied, their essence of fire? A clue comes from the Ethiopian Enoch, which describes the wicked sons of... Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Sorry. Their essence of fire. I've never thought of spirits being fire-like, but obviously there's a lot of things that... I think of fire in description with the Lord and other things pertaining to his glory and things being so bright and beautiful. And like the burning bush on Mount Sinai, I've come to reconfigure that in my mind as a tree of life scenario, a temple approaching ceremony. And that burning bush was not just a bush. I bet you it was a tree of life, or at least representative of the tree of life, if anything. And but that has a lot to do with spiritual matter. And that's fascinating. So, Our essence of fire. A clue comes from the Ethiopian Enoch, which describes the wicked sons of Seth who taught enchantments and root cuttings. Suddenly men perished. They cried, and their cry went up to heaven. The souls of men made their petition to the angels who relay the message. The souls of those who have died are crying and make their suit to the gates of heaven, and thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. The sons of Seth teach the root cuttings, because of which men die, and their souls cry up to the angels who don't know what to do with them. Perhaps the note is that the outcry is coming from those who have died, not who were slain. Enoch doesn't mention any battles before this point. It almost sounds like their cause of death is the root cutting. The language here is tricky. The angels here sounded perplexed. What are we to do in regard to these? Like this is something the heavens were unprepared for. Victims of war is one thing, but what do we do in regard to these? The plan was being thwarted. Satan was preventing mankind from inheriting the bodies that he was denied. He was also locking them in the land of the dead forever without any hope of liberation. Infertility meant Jehovah could not make it not take on mortal form. If Jehovah couldn't be born, he couldn't die. And if he couldn't die, he couldn't liberate the spirits stranded in the spirit world. Instructing him for his ministry, the Lord shows Enoch a punishment prepared for those who dishonor God, who on earth practice sin against nature, which is child corruption. Enoch is taught about the world of death. The Lord lists their sins: fornication, murder, stealing the souls of men. To the confused angels, the Lord's reply is all about fertility. He hopes that All the righteous shall live till they beget thousands of children. The whole earth shall be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees. And the vine which they plant thereon shall yield wine in abundance. And as to all the seeds which is sown thereon, and I will never again send punishments upon it from generation to generation and forever. That's 1 Enoch. Joseph and the other texts refrain. The Lord prepared Enoch by showing him the unborn and the dead, both of which depended on the flood cleansing the earth. Following the pinching abominations of the sons of Seth, this is exactly the vision that Enoch would need. Now, with clarity, Enoch could testify against their works. Enoch's vision of the tree of life. Joseph makes Enochian claims earlier than anybody previously thought. In the Book of Mormon, Lehi and Nephi receive a vision of the tree of life. Lehi has it first, then his son Nephi, implying that his vision is modular or replayable, like beatific TiVo. The vision was so strange and original that critics attack it for all the wrong reasons. E.D. Howe, in Mormonism Unveiled, snorts about the Tree of Life vision. It furnishes to us good evidence that the author, Joseph Smith Jr., was guided by the New Testament when his low and licentious imagination conceived and brought to light the Book of Mormon. He could not, nor dared not fabricate anything for fear of detection, which would not be found in the historical part of the sacred writings, but upon anything which pertains to spiritual affairs, and is not susceptible for the contradiction, only through the medium of reason. Every license is taken by the author. Jeez. Howe talks like a drunk Yoda, so let's unpack this. Howe whines that Joseph didn't claim anything specific, which could not be found in the historical part of sacred writings, due to Joseph's fear of detection. Instead, says Howe, Joseph takes every license and writes upon anything which pertains to spiritual affairs and is not susceptible to contradiction. Okay, Howe's criticism is that the vision is so timid that there's nothing to test it against. Howe completely skips the tree, river, rod, fruit, darkness, chasm, spacious building, and multitudes groping in the dark. He's upset that the vision eventually depicts the Lamb of God and therefore sounds too Christian for his liking. If you're going to skip 90% of the vision, you can't get mad that you didn't find anything interesting in it. That's a fair criticism. The first part of the vision is full of delicious gems, like honey garlic popcorn, chicken bites of ancient truth. Unknown to Mr. Howe, and probably to Brother Joseph, is that Lehi and Nephi's vision are chock full of very specific and unique claims that can be tested against the Ethiopic Book of Enoch. Perhaps Howe wasn't hanging out around the local water coolers to pick up on all the Enoch gossip, so he didn't notice, but Joseph's description of Lehi and Nephi's vision are weirdly akin to Enoch's. And I'm going to add that, if you read in the language of Adam, maybe it's temple-centered. The Nephite prophets share the vision, which means there are two versions of it. One from Lehi, one from Nephi. Nephi tells the angel, I desire to behold the things from which my father saw. Later, Nephi provides an interpretation to his brothers, not only of his vision, but of Lehi's. So it's safe to say that they saw the same thing, even if the accounts differ moderately in their retelling. Also, Nephi gives an explanation to his brothers afterwards, which provides yet more detail in 1 Nephi 15. In the table below, see how Joseph's anneditions of the Nephite visions parallel the later discovered Enochian version. Wow, this is a nice big table. So we've got Lehi, Nephi, and Enoch. So I'll say Lehi, then Enoch. Lehi, behold, I have dreamed a dream, or in other words, I've seen a vision. Enoch, a dream came to me, and visions fell down upon me. Lehi, and it came to pass that as I followed him, I beheld myself that I was in a dark and dreary waste, after I had traveled for the space of many hours in darkness. Enoch, and they brought me to a place of darkness. Lehi, I was caught away, well, this is actually Nephi, I was caught away in the Spirit of the Lord, yea, into an exceedingly high mountain, which I had never before seen, and upon which I had never before set my foot. Enoch. And to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven. So this is all from 1 Enoch, by the way, so it's not like other books. Let's see here, Nephi. And it came to pass that the Spirit said unto me, Look, and I looked and beheld a tree, and it was like unto the tree which my father had seen, Enoch. And amongst them was a tree, such as I had never yet smelt, neither was any amongst them, nor were like others like it. It had a fragrance beyond all fragrance, and its leaves and blooms and wood wither not forever, and its fruit is beautiful. Nephi continued, and the beauty thereof was far beyond, yea, exceeding all beauty, and where the whiteness thereof did exceed the whiteness of the driven snow. And Enoch continued, Then I said, How beautiful is that tree, and fragrance, and its leaves are fair, and its blooms very delightful in appearance. Nephi. And the Spirit said unto me, Behold, what desirest thou, Enoch? And an angel said unto me, Enoch, why dost thou ask me regarding the fragrance of the tree? And why dost thou wish to learn its truth? Nephi. And I said, I desire to behold the things which my father saw. And it came to pass after I had seen the tree, and he said unto me, What desirest thou? I said to him, To know the interpretation thereof. Enoch. Then I answering him, saying, I wish to know about everything, but especially about this tree. Nephi. The Spirit cried with a loud voice, and behold, this thing is given unto thee for a sign, that after thou hast beheld the tree which bore the fruit, which thy father tasted, thou shalt also behold a man descending out of heaven, and him shall ye witness. And after ye have witnessed him, ye shall bear record that it is the Son of God. Enoch. And he answered, saying, This high mountain which thou hast seen, whose summit is like the throne of God, is his throne, where the Holy Great One, the Lord of glory, the eternal King, will sit, when he shall come down to visit the earth with goodness. Nephi. And he spake unto me, saying, Yea, and most joyous to the soul, Enoch. Then shall they rejoice with joy, and be glad, and into the holy place shall they enter, and its fragrance shall be in their bones. Nephi. And I said to them that the water which my father saw was filthiness, and I said unto them that it was an awful gulf which separated the wicked from the tree of life, and also from the saints of God. Enoch. There I saw a holy mountain, and underneath the mountain to the east there was a stream. It flowed toward the south, and I saw toward the east another mountain higher than this, and between them a deep and narrow ravine. In it also ran a stream underneath the mountain. Then said I, For what object is this blessed land, which is entirely filled with trees, and this accursed valley between? Nephi. Which the angel said unto me was prepared for the wicked, wherefore there must needs be a place of filthiness prepared for that which is filthy. And there is a place prepared, yea, even that awful hell which I have spoken. Enoch. And from thence I went to another place, which was still more horrible than the former. Then I said, How fearful is the place, and terrible to look upon, and how terrible to look upon. And he said unto me, This is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. I think angels, remember, were the people who were supposed to be the sons of God. Back to Nephi. The wicked are rejected from the righteous, and also from that tree of life, whose fruit is most precious and most desirable above all other fruits. From Enoch. And for this fragrant tree no mortal is permitted to touch it, till the great judgment, when he shall take vengeance on all, and bring everything to its consummation forever. It shall then be given to the righteous and holy. Its fruit shall be for food to the elect. It shall be transplanted to the holy place, and to the temple of the Lord, the eternal King. Wow. Joseph allegedly reveals a vision by these later Josephite prophets that somehow correspond to the Ethiopic Enoch, which he couldn't have read. The two visions, separated by thousands of years, somehow managed to correspond on 1. An angel-guided dream vision of dark waste being carried up into a high mountain to behold a beautiful tree whose fruit brings joy, and see an awful gulf or accursed valley. These are literally the same words, just translated differently, which is prepared for the wicked, who will also be deprived of the beautiful tree's fruit, which will someday be offered to the righteous when Jehovah descends to the earth. Tragically, how hopscotch is right over these 10 gems to whine about pre-Christian Christianity, which he claims is anachronistic. Do anti-Mormons think Ethiopic Enoch is also anachronistic since it has messianic language in it? Or did those criticisms vanish in 1840s when Christians started reading the rediscovered records awash in pre-Christian Christianity? Upon reviewing the list above, I'm sure the anti-Mormon bloggers and podcasters and TikTokers will snap to their cameras and boot up their laptops to accuse the patriarch of the Ethiopian Church of stealing a text from Joseph Smith Jr. This simply must be the case. Clearly, the Ge'ez scribes in Addis Ababa had a scribes in Addis Ababa. Ababa. Sorry, it's just ABA. So Ababa. So Addis Ababa had a copy of the Book of Mormon available to them in their native tongue, so they could craft their clever forgery. How else can these similarities be explained? If those sly Ethiopian priests aren't plagiarists, then the only other explanation is that God gave both Enoch and Josephite prophets the same vision. Not to mention Jeremiah. Ooh, interesting. Apparently that comes on page 114 and 115 of Barnes's book. Anyway, where was I? Both the Ethiopic Enoch and Joseph's annedictions are discounted by canon-sniffing theologians, despite their supernatural correspondences. Godly man. The next major point claimed by Joseph is Enoch's ministry. Armed with a new nickname, a cool vision, and God's guarantee of protection, Enoch then went forth in the land among the people, standing upon the hills and the high places. It didn't take long for all men to be offended. It didn't take long before all men were offended. Scandal draws attention, and soon they came forth to hear him. The sons of Seth say unto the tent keepers, Tarry ye here and keep the tents. Before they assemble to hear out Enoch. Let me see that again. The sons of Seth say unto the tent keepers, Tarry ye here, and keep the tents before they assemble to hear out Enoch. So they went to hear him. Here Joseph makes a strange claim without knowing it. Tent keeper is a description that never appears in the Bible or Book of Mormon. Biblically speaking, the term keeper means a kind of guard. So without knowing it, Joseph makes the passing claim that these curious sons of Seth had tent guards. This tiny phrase actually implies a lot. Not only do the sons of Seth have goods worth guarding, but putting such emphasis on them implies priorities and thievery. They don't kiss their kids goodbye or put on an out-of-office reply. They don't give away the milk in their refrigerators. They set guards over their stuff. As it turns out, this is exactly right. The extra-biblical stories of Enoch also focus on this very point. The antediluvians were rich thieves. The Ethiopian Book of Enoch, which gives the most focus on Enoch's early ministry, implies a need for tent keepers too. Enoch preaches against the mighty men. Ye sinners trust in your riches, and from your riches ye shall depart, because ye have not remembered the Most High in the days of your riches. Ye have committed blasphemy and unrighteousness. He who hath created you will overthrow you. That's 1 Enoch. Giving a shout to Joseph, the Ethiopian Enoch reminds them of him who hath created you. Not only are the antediluvians greedy, but they are thieves who are content to eat and drink and rob and sin and strip naked and acquire wealth and see good days. The Mandean says They increase their wealth by illicit gain. The Dead Sea Scrolls seems to think there's more in those tents than just coins. On the cryptic fragment of the story of Viragdad, a mighty man who robbed Hababis, after which they began to kill each other and to abduct their wives. So those tents might have been pens for sex slaves. Joseph moves on. After all their debauchery, incest, and even cannibalism, it's odd that the sons of Seth dismiss Enoch, saying, "A wild man hath come among us." Again, not a phrase common to Joseph. That's a bit hypocritical, isn't it? How is little Enoch wild compared to the blood-drinking sons of Seth? Are they really accusing Enoch of being uncouth or disheveled? Why would these lawless killers call Enoch wild? Oh. In 1828, the Venerable Mr. Webster gave a few definitions for the word wild. These would have been pretty close to what Joseph knew in 1830, when he dictated the moniker given to Enoch. The first definition was roving, wandering, inhabiting the forest or open field. In this sense, Enoch might have looked wild because he walked about preaching in the land and upon the high places, but would that be enough to earn the title wild? Perhaps Webster's second definition is more telling. Wild. Growing without culture, as wild parsnip, wild cherry, wild tansy, grows spontaneously. In a world where fertility is everywhere controlled and strangled, Enoch appears out of nowhere. He was born without sanction or control of the watchers. Furthermore, he was not common in this generation, being so young compared to everyone else. Mankind had been cultivated and sterilized, yet here sprouted some wild human. In fact, Noah's birth, recorded in Genesis, apocryphon, receives the same incredulity that Enoch's appearance does. Noah's father was so shocked that his wife gave birth that he thought in his heart that the conception was the work of the watchers, the pregnancy of the holy ones, and it belonged to the Nephilim. Noah's mother assures his father, "I swear to you that this seed, pregnancy, and planting of fruit comes from you." That's Moses 6:38. Wow. The mother of Noah had to say, no, this was you, not anyone else. Jeez. Wow. Okay. Genesis Apocryphon, Fragment 2, Column 2. Wow. The wicked rulers of the world, the sons of Seth, whom Enoch calls my brothers, ask a very telling question of the wild man. They tell him whence he comest. This question exposes the sad reality the watchers have created. A wild human birth is simply incredible. In the Mandean Enoch, the new young prophet is warned, have no dealings with them, with these vile slaves who indulge in debauchery in the face of their Lord. Do not mix with these abortions. That is Livre de Adam. Have no dealings with. Wow. The Ethiopian agrees with Joseph too. When Enoch sees a vision of judgment, he notes the fragrance, the aromatic trees, the blessed land, and the wilderness full of trees and plants. The wild wilderness is associated with a garden of righteousness. Wild things are fertile, thriving, and alive. Wild things are in contrast to the sterility and death of the antediluvians. Wow. 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 The curious case of Enoch the lion. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1946, the greatest archaeological discovery in the 12th century. In fact, the Dead Sea Scrolls were the second greatest discovery from the ancient world in a millennium, right after the Book of Mormon. Scholars from across the globe descended like a plague of frogs upon the manuscripts. Jordan, Israel, and Palestine all claimed ownership. French, Dutch, German, and Israeli scientists all vied for the opportunity to handle them. Everyone wanted to help with translation, yet somehow the Dead Sea Scrolls took over 30 years to be translated. How on earth could they take 30 years to translate? George Q. Cannon translated the entire Book of Mormon into Hawaiian, a language he had to teach himself in just 3 years. Not to mention Joseph, the curve wrecker, slamming out the first English Book of Mormon in less than 3 months. What took so long for the Dead Sea Scrolls? The complete Dead Sea Scrolls in English is less than 700 pages, including commentary. With the attention and help of every scholar on the planet and unlimited resources, how the heck could it take 30 years to translate the most important archaeological find in the modern era? Bias, that's why. Because everyone wants to be a part of the discovery, like old friends calling up when you've won the lottery. Those 30 years were not spent on translating, but on arguing and jockeying. The scholarly community proved just as self-interested as the kidnapping woman before King Solomon. While scholars were only interested in whose name appeared at the bottom, cretists were concerned whether or not the entire Bible would be blown up. If the Dead Sea Scrolls contradicted the Bible, then it might prove Joseph right, that plain and precious things have been lost. Yet, for the most part, the Dead Sea Scrolls drew upon Hebrew texts from long after the Exodus of Lehi and the brass plates, and they matched the Bible fairly well. There are a few intriguing exceptions, though. One curious exception comes from Isaiah 21, in which Isaiah sees a vision of a watchman who cries out, "A lion, my lord! I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime." Centuries of scholars have given themselves headaches staring at this verse. A lion? What does a lion have to do with anything? Some scholars suppose that lion here must be comparing the watchman's shout to a lion's roar, as in loudness. The point of comparison to a lion is in Revelation 10:3, the loudness of the cry. But here it is rather his vigilance. The lion's eyelids are short, so that even when asleep, he seems to be on the watch, awake. That comes from Jameson commentary on Isaiah 21. Matthew Henry supposes that shouting lion gave them a certain sound, and everybody knew the meaning of it, though we do not know it now. At least Henry admits that we aren't sure. The truth is, lion is a total mistranslation. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls showed that Isaiah 21:8 is a blunder. Some confused Hebrew words I can't read with more Hebrew words that I can't read, which sucks. The Harvard Crimson reports the letters RYH, lion, are a scribe's mistake for HRH, the seer. Oh. Interesting. Sorry, HR apostrophe H. Today we know that and he cried a lion makes no sense at all, and the seer cried suits the context perfectly. That comes from Scott in 1956. The correct reading of the verse could be something like this. He calls out like a lion, the complete Jewish translation. He cried as a lion, Hebrew Names Version. Then the seer called out, Common English Bible in 2011. This was an orthographic error, which birthed centuries of vain interpretations, a simple spelling mistake. This is an example of the ignorant translators or careless transcribers that Joseph Smith Jr. warned us about. See the prophet Joseph Smith, page 327. Cretists bristle and claim that the Bible is complete, in complete agreement with itself. Latter-day Saints must be confused They never even go so far to say that the Dead Sea Scrolls have further corroborated. They even go so far as to say that the Dead Sea Scrolls have further corroborated the Bible. But between the Bible is inerrant and the Bible has problems, the Dead Sea Scrolls are firmly in the latter camp. This particular mistake turned a seer into a lion, and did so completely innocently. At least we can be comforted to know that lots of guys got their PhDs talking about this symbolism from the lion nonsense. But the confusion of the lion and seer is even more interesting when Joseph reveals that the antediluvians called Enoch, "A seer hath the Lord raised up unto his people. And it came to pass that Enoch went forth in the land among the people, standing upon the hills and the high places, and cried with a loud voice, testifying against their works. And all men were offended because of him." Moses 6:36-37. This seer crying out with a loud voice sounds a lot like Isaiah's seer. But then Joseph translates one curious description as of Enoch just a bit later. Enoch continued to call upon all people, save it were the people of Canaan, to repent. And so great was the faith of Enoch that he led the people of God, and their enemies came to battle against them. And he spake the word of the Lord, and the earth trembled, and the mountains fled, even according to his command. And the rivers of water were turned out of their course, and the roar of the lions was heard out of the wilderness. And all nations feared greatly. So powerful was the word of Enoch. Dang. In this passage, Enoch, the seer, is still doing his job and warning people, but in the middle of it all, a bizarre mention of a lion's roar. Just like Isaiah, the lion butts into a story about the seer and then vanishes without a trace. All context aside, this passage matches new discoveries with alarming precision. In the mysterious Book of the Giants, a battle is described precisely like Joseph describes, and in the midst of it, the roar of the beasts of the field is coming. Other translators render this as wild beasts. Somehow Joseph matches a document undiscovered until 1947. This would be proof enough either Joseph's having invented a time machine or being a prophet. But what if they're all passing on an error? Isaiah's scribes conflated lion with seer in exactly the same context. A battle was raging in Isaiah, just like the Book of the Giants. And just like Joseph's telling, amidst the battle the seer cries out like a lion's roar, and the power of his cry is mighty. If we insert the Dead Sea Scrolls correction into Joseph's passage, it reads much more fluidly. Enoch continued to call upon all people, save it were the people of Canaan, to repent, and so great was the faith of Enoch that he led the people of God, and their enemies came to battle against them. And he spake the word of the Lord, and the earth trembled, and the mountains fled according to his commandment, and the rivers of water were turned out of their course, and the cry of the seer was heard out of the wilderness. And all nations feared greatly. So powerful was the word of Enoch. Suddenly this passage is all about the power of the seer's cry instead of some lion. The problem with this adjustment is that the original error in Isaiah was orthographic, which is just a fancy way of saying someone fudged the letters. The scribes of giants could have committed the same errors, but what about Joseph? Joseph was receiving revelation direct from above, right? How could an orthographic error be preserved through Joseph's prophetic filter? We've already seen that Joseph simply kept the word giants from Genesis, even though the Hebrew word was far more complicated. He didn't bother correcting it there. On occasion, Joseph preserved idiosyncratic translations from Isaiah that later scholarship would determine were particular to one scribal tradition. There's a footnote here. Fair LDS, does the Book of Mormon reproduce translation errors from the King James Version? Accessed at fairlatterdaysaints.org, 21st of April, 2025. This would simply be another example of that strict orthographic restoration, warts and all. That's a fancy way of saying that Joseph was restoring actual ancient texts rather than doing a Vulcan mind meld with the original authors. Joseph was bringing actual lost documents back to life rather than writing new ones. Joseph never claimed to be witnessing the battle or hearing the roar of Enoch with his own ears, but to be receiving the words as given to him by revelation. This might complicate our understanding of how Joseph revealed things, but it only makes clearer that Joseph was miraculously tapped into antiquity. The textual quirks in the revelation concerning Adam will only further testify that Joseph Smith Jr. was a man, but also a seer, who was inexplicable, incomparable, and astounding. Last call for the cosmic lifeboat. Let me see how long this chapter is. Ooh. It's not long. Yeah, let's get to Adam's baptism. Okay. Like a bug fumigator, nothing keeps the antis away like MHWY. Since ancient languages didn't have written vowels, words like Mihujah are spelt with big caps like YHWH for Jehovah or MHWY for Mihujah. It should be plastered all over every anti-Mormon blog and thread and all over the walls of their mom's basement where they live. According to the inspired version, when men heard Enoch, no man laid hands on him, for fear came on all men that heard him, for he walked with God. The book of Jasher corroborates exactly, stating that after Enoch started his ministry, quote, all the sons of men were greatly afraid of Enoch, and they feared to approach him on account of the godlike awe that was seated upon his countenance. Therefore no man could look at him, fearing that he might be punished and die. Jasher 3:20. Exactly like Joseph, Jasher claims that one, Enoch started his ministry. All were afraid because of his numinosity, or I think he meant luminosity. And the rulers agreed to send a messenger to inquire of Enoch. Most of Enoch 0 reads like a broad summary. There isn't a single character named who already appears in the traditional Bible, but this one exception. Right where Jasher says the rulers resolved to speak to Enoch, Joseph reveals the messenger's name. A man came to Enoch whose name was Mihujah, and said unto them, tell us plainly who thou art, and from whence thou comest. Mihujah is the anglicized version of the Hebrew name MHWY. But then again, Joseph didn't even speak Hebrew in 1830, so he couldn't possibly have known that. But who cares? That crazy Joseph kid is just making up stories again. The name MHWY doesn't even appear in the Bible at all. Silly Joseph. Glad we can so easily dismiss that fraudster. Then, in 1971, 131 years later, that one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries was made of the text of the Book of Giants. In this mysterious book, remember, 1971, more than 100 years after Joseph. In this mysterious book, the doomed sons of Seth started dreaming dreams about their impending fate. They summoned a messenger and sent him to Enoch to ask him what these dreadful omens mean. The man they send just happens to be named MHWY. Joseph Smith Jr. hit a bullseye, and not like any bullseye. Joseph correctly guessed the sons of Seth's fall. So this is the table. You have got Joseph and the Book of Giants. The sons of Seth fall for Joseph. Book of Giants, the Nephilim became defiled. Joseph, Enoch is set apart to preach. Book of Giants, Enoch the scribe is set apart to cry out against the wicked. Joseph, everyone is afraid. Book of Giants, all the giants were afraid. Joseph, the wicked declare of Enoch, wild man hath come among us. Book of Giants, the giants declare a wild animal has come, crying out. Joseph Smith, Mihujah, MHWY, approaches Enoch to inquire. The Book of Giants, Mihujah, MHWY, approaches Enoch to inquire. Joseph, Enoch reads from the Book of Remembrance. Book of Giants, the second tablet is read, which we remember was the Book of Remembrance at Adam's death. Joseph, Enoch preaches, the fire of the Lord's indignation is kindled against them, and in my hot displeasure I will send the floods upon them, for my fierce anger is kindled against them. Book of Giants. Mihujah, M-H-W-Y, reports back to the sons of Seth about frightening portents from the Holy One regarding your actions, your fornication upon the earth, and the destruction which you have perpetuated upon it. Something will come upon you for your wickedness. Keep in mind that the Book of Giants is horribly mangled and fractured. Only tiny snippets can be deciphered and translated. Decades-long efforts of scholars have only managed to glean about 700 words from the scroll. That's fewer words than Words of Mormon, the shortest book in the Book of Mormon. That's fewer words than it takes Bill Clinton to explain what the word is. And yet, from this tiny book, we get impossible parallels to Joseph's version again and again and again. This isn't just Joseph says God is cool and also so does the apocryphal book. Gee whiz, what a coincidence. Joseph gets the scene, the circumstance, the actions, the characters exactly correct, right down to the exact same name. This is like using a BB gun to shoot a flea off a turtle's back while it's walking on a crater on the moon. If this is a coincidence, then mathematics ceases to have any meaning. You might as well put atoms in a blender and incidentally produce a pocket watch. Joseph was either a prophet or we're all living in the Matrix and Joseph hacked it. Research on the astounding parallels between Joseph's version and the Book of the Giants has already been completed by greater minds than ours, but it bears mentioning that the predictions of Joseph Smith Jr. were so prophetic that even Dr. Salvatore Cirio, the guy who got his PhD off of a non-existent copy of the 1828 Book of Enoch in the New York Library, concluded that this matching between the text must be evidence that Joseph had influence from pseudographical books of Enoch. Yes, and a time machine too, because the Book of Giants wasn't translated until the late 20th century. One of the original translators of the Book of Giants, Dr. Matthew Black, opined on these certain parallels by saying that someday we'll find out where Joseph Smith got that. Someday a source will turn up. Okay, sure, Matt. Don't hold your breath. This is the academic God of the gaps argument. If something is inexplicable, some kind of phantom text must explain it all. Well, we have no evidence for it, but it simply must exist somewhere. Which is more miraculous? Joseph Smith Jr. was a seer chosen by God, or Joseph Smith discovered some ancient Book of the Giants account, translated it from the languages he didn't know, hid it from the entire world, and then left those gems to hopefully be discovered by strangers a century later? Atheists have the most blind faith imaginable. This appeal to the God of the gaps is a begrudged admission that no other explanation exists. There is no way to explain how Joseph predicted all these details in the Book of the Giants. By retreating to this phantom explanation, the critics are conceding that they can't figure it out. Academics are admitting that a kid from New York with a quill pen sat down one summer in 1830 and outdid them all. Joseph Smith Jr. outsmarted 141 years of academia. Archaeologists and paleographers and linguists from Germany to France to Jordan to Britain, with libraries full of dissertations and research papers and highfalutin sheepskins and robes and tassels and tenure, and he did it with a quiet flick of a pen and never told anyone about it. Then he kissed his wife, bounced his baby, and went outside to chop wood, like a boss. Next is Adam's baptism. Yeah. Between Nahum and Mihujah. Nahum for the Book of Mormon, Mihujah for a pearl of great price. Oh, good heavens. Yeah. Pretty amazing and convincing stuff. If I'd have more to talk on. I know my mind and heart are kind of filled with the current events about Charlie Kirk. If you want to hear what I had to say about that, I'll put a link to the shorter video that I have about that. But ultimately, don't be a watcher. Don't let Satan rage in your heart. I think it's very apropos that I've been reading the Lost Gems of Genesis at this time. I think it's needed for what's been happening and what's coming. I pray that God will be with you. I pray that he'll be with us all. And I pray that we can be like Enoch and preach to even those who specifically teach and preach and come against truth, just truth, that are enemies of truth and righteousness. People who turn their backs on reality and turn their backs on goodness for whatever gain they feel like they're getting. And that we can really truly trust God, truly trust that in the resurrection, trust in the goodness of Jesus Christ, in his mercy towards anyone who would be willing to follow him. So, I love you, and God be with you.